You're listening to The Topcast, the original podcast for growth-minded instrumental music and voice teachers since 2015, with your host, Tim Topham. Our mission at Top Music is to empower instrumental music and voice teachers to find and nurture their innate creativity so that they can teach lessons that are innovative, integrated, and inspiring, and that will have a positive, lifelong impact on their students. Join us each week as we interview teachers and creators from around the world and unpack fun and exciting ideas to maximize your teaching and studio business success. Hey there, teachers. Welcome back to the Topcast. It's Tim Topham here. It's great to be hanging out with you again this week. How was your weekend? Hope you have enjoyed things. I know that school is wrapping up in the Northern Hemisphere. If you're over in America, I imagine you might be getting close to break time. Is that right? I think I've got it right. So enjoy your breaks and the final recitals and winding things up for your summertime coming up. I hope all that goes well. And to those of us in the Southern Hemisphere, we're putting jumpers on and rugging up for winter. Fun times ahead. Anyway, today's episode is a little bit different to some of our other ones. It's a topic I haven't really covered before. Now, I know lots of teachers only really teach evenings and weekends, and that can cause real problems because it's often a time that we want to spend with our families and we want to have dinner with our children, etc. And it's all of our social time is kind of taken up by teaching. I've heard of teachers teaching regularly from 3 till 9 or 10 at night on weekends, and then on weekdays, and then often on weekends, again, a full day on potentially Saturday, maybe a few lessons on Sunday. It can become really unsustainable. And so I thought today's episode could help those of you questioning, what could I do during the day? How can I get daytime students? Or more specifically, how can I get daytime income? Because what we're talking about today is a different way to potentially bring income into your studio that isn't about more teaching and that you can potentially do during the day. My guest today is a pianist, teacher, music administrator, and lover of piano teaching gadgets. She holds a DMA in collaborative piano from the University of Boulder, Colorado, from the University of Colorado Boulder, and an MM in accompanying from the University of Kansas. She currently serves as director at St. John's Conservatory of the Arts in Orange County, California. Previously, she held positions at Concordia University, Irvine, and Henderson State University. She is passionate about empowering music teachers to create engaging and exciting lessons for students of all ages. And when she isn't playing the piano, you might find her reading books with her son or walking her beagle, Frida. Welcome to the show, Rachel. So good to have you here.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Well, I think most listeners will know you now as the host of our amazing Top Music Piano podcast. So thank you so much for that. I enjoy tuning in. I now know why people enjoy having my podcast around, because it's so much fun just to tune in and hear conversations with great people. So thank you for all that you're doing over there.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's my pleasure.
So today we're actually talking about one of your other hats, and you've got quite a few that you wear, but one of them is that you are a course creator over at Dream Lavender Music Studio, which is your studio website, but you're now creating courses for music teachers. And this one is all about collaborative piano. And as we heard in your intro, your DMA is actually in collaborative piano. So you are truly advanced in this area, right?
Yes. So I did get a doctorate in collaborative piano, and I've probably worked for about 20 years actually as a collaborative pianist before I sort of transitioned to my current job, which is more administrative for the music school.
All right. Well, let's talk about this collaborative piano. So we should probably explain what does this mean? Are we talking, and why not call it accompanist piano?
Yeah. So collaborative piano is kind of a fancy word for accompanying. And really they mean the same thing when you get down to it. But collaborative piano is a word that's become more popular, I guess, in the last 40 years or so, that denotes the two parts being equal rather than a soloist and someone who's just kind of coming along for the ride as the accompanist. Collaborative piano shows that the two parts really are collaborative. And as you know, if you've played some of this music, sometimes the piano part is infinitely more difficult than the instrumental part.
Yes.
Yeah.
I remember accompanying a student who was doing percussion for one of his final year student exams here in Australia. So year 12, we call it. And literally one of his pieces, he was on the timpani. Now, there's only so much that you can do on timpani or kettle drums. And he's sort of going bomb, bomb and rolling. And I'm like all over the piano and I'm basically playing a symphony on the keys. And he's like, boom, boom. And I was like, this is not fair. I'm not getting paid enough to learn all this music.
Exactly. So I think someone decided that collaborative piano sounded a little more equal for the two people.
And do we include piano duets and two piano works in this line of?
Yes, we do. I think that those are collaborative. Anytime you're performing with another person, it's considered collaborative piano.
So what got you so interested in collaborative piano that you would do a doctorate in it? Because that takes a lot of commitment.
It does. So, well, I have to take you back, I guess, to my undergrad degree, which was in piano performance. And as I was getting near the end of my degree, I really didn't know what I was going to do with myself. Most of my friends in the program were preparing to be teachers, or because it was a religious school, some of them were going to be music ministers, music directors at churches. But those things didn't seem like what I was going to do. And I didn't know what it was going to be. I thought maybe I was going to get an office job and just play the piano on the side somewhere. And just a couple of months before I graduated, one of the voice faculty approached me and said, one of our accompanists is leaving. Would you be interested in doing some part-time accompanying for the school? And I honestly had never even considered it. I didn't know it was an option. I think because the other accompanists at the school were, twice my age, I thought you had to be old and experienced to do something like that. And so I jumped at the opportunity, and it was so perfect because, all the faculty there knew me. And so they were mentoring me. The other accompanists who were twice my age were mentoring me and teaching me. I was able to take some diction classes and just really get my feet wet in accompanying. And it turned out that I really liked it. And I kind of had an affinity for it. I was a good sight reader, and it kind of came naturally to me. And the more I did it, the more I enjoyed it. And I decided to get a master's degree, and then worked as an accompanist for a few years, and then decided to go back and get the doctorate, thinking that I would teach at a university, which I was on staff at a university for several years after my doctorate. But then during COVID, kind of transitioned out of that position and am now the director of the music conservatory.
The doctorate, did you have to do a thesis?
So it wasn't a full thesis. We had to do, what did they call them? Thesis projects or something like that. We had to do 4, and we had to do 4 recitals and then 2 other projects. One was a recording project and one was a smaller paper. So our DMA recitals were considered part of the dissertation projects, I guess.
I would have asked you what your thesis topic was, because I always find that utterly fascinating when I know someone's got a PhD. And they're all so odd, some of them. But, it's fascinating what interests people enough to go that deep in things. So that gives us a really good background, so I appreciate that. I actually have always been an accompanist. I started accompanying ballet studios, actually. Now, that's not collaborative piano, is it? That is actually accompanying when you're playing for a ballet.
Well, I guess so, because, I guess it's not
truly your kind
piano.
of background, I mean, they are dancing to your music, but so I did that right back when I was 17, 18, because it was good. It was good money for a kid of my age who could, as you say, sight read. And then I got into more musical theatre. I did a lot of musical theatre playing for productions. So, and then in my school appointments, like at Xavier College and stuff, I did lots and lots of accompanying. So I am well and truly know exactly this role. But I know that a lot of other teachers perhaps aren't strong on it, aren't confident perhaps, or don't even know that there is a whole world of income generation possible through this. And that's why it's great that you are putting resources out there about it, I think. So let's actually just talk. You mentioned sight reading. Now, I think sight reading is a huge advantage for an accompanist. What are some of the skills the other skills, I guess, it takes to be a good collaborative pianist? And feel free to talk about sight reading too, if you agree.
Yeah, I mean, sight reading is a huge one, especially if you're doing this full time or if you're doing a lot of accompanying, there's just not time to practice all the music. When I was a full-time accompanist, I would have a whole stack of music on my piano, and I would have the ones I needed to practice at the top of the stack. And then the ones I knew I could sight read would just kind of get set aside. So sight reading is really important. There's also times when people just, they hand you the music at the very last minute. I've even sight read in performances, believe it or not, which is not my favorite thing, but it does happen. So yeah, sight reading for sure, but also listening, learning how to listen in a different way, because you're not just listening to the sound of the piano. You have to listen to the singer or the instrumentalist. You have to know where they are in the music. If they skip a beat, you're going to skip a beat to match them, making sure that the balance is appropriate, that you're not covering them or playing too softly. So learning how to listen is a big one. And then I would say there's some, I guess you'd call them soft skills, being flexible, being personable, because you're dealing with all sorts of different personalities and sometimes some big egos, let's be honest. I won't name any certain instruments or anything, but...
Or not instruments, perhaps.
Yeah, maybe not. Yes.
I know what you mean.
So I think having the personality for it, you have to be not too high strung, especially when you go out on stage with someone. If they're nervous, you have to kind of be the calming effect there for them.
And I think there's also potentially the challenge of repertoire, because it's a whole new repertoire list. And you've got all the Schubert art song, you've got operatic arias, it depends what area you're doing. I was tending to do a lot of exam accompanying. And so there were very set pieces that most of the teachers would put all their flute students through and their violin students. So I got used to the repertoire that way. But I guess if you're accompanying in church or you're a collaborative pianist in a church, then you'll get to know that repertoire. Is there any standards that teachers should know if they want to come into this area, or music they should listen to perhaps and get familiar with?
Yeah, that's one of the things that I go over a little bit in the course that we're going to talk about is some of the standard repertoire, and I give some repertoire lists of some of the standard rep. And there's some in the collaborative piano world that are known to be like the ones you want to avoid if possible, like the Hindemith sonatas are just known to be difficult.
No. Always say no.
Yeah, some of the saxophone repertoire is so difficult. But a lot of the vocal stuff is just, it's gorgeous. All of the art songs and the Schubert, like you were mentioning, Schubert, Schumann, Mendelssohn, all of those they're gorgeous songs and they're really fun to learn. But kind of to your point, a lot of times you don't have control over the repertoire, right? You're being asked to play certain pieces. So that's another place where that flexibility comes in, where you have to be willing to play something that you might not have chosen to learn. And that might, like for me, I have really small hands, but if someone asks me to play a piece that's full of tenths, then I have to figure out how to make it work, So that's another part of it.
So let's talk about some of those advantages for piano teachers who are listening, who maybe have dabbled in it or haven't tried it, but don't know it's out there, or maybe they do. What are some of those advantages for how they could add this to their mix?
Well, like you mentioned, there are the opportunities to get some extra income through accompanying. And sometimes you can fill up some of those daytime hours that piano teachers don't know quite what to do with, because everyone wants after school lessons. So you can accompany for school choirs or solo and ensemble contests. We have that here in the States. Things like that during the daytime when those are hard hours to fill in a teaching studio. And I think it's also a really great skill to teach your students and make them more marketable and give them more opportunities. And it's a great skill for them there's skills that they'll learn through accompanying that they might not learn through solo playing. For example, their rhythm is most likely going to improve if they're accompanying, because it has to. You have to have good rhythm to be an accompanist. So encouraging your students to do more accompanying as well. And it's just fun. Like, it's fun for students to work with their peers and learn some of that music together.
Yeah, I've heard of teachers trying to get if other children in a family play another instrument, to get them together. So if one of them plays a trumpet and someone's doing the piano, can you get your trumpet brother in and play some music with him? Or trying to arrange that at schools that they're at somehow. I think there's huge value in that. I agree. It is that students do find it fun, even if it's just two pianos or a duet on one piano, particularly if you have crossover periods during your lessons. If you're doing that kind of 30-minute lessons with a 15-minute crossover, it's a great opportunity for students to play duets and two piano works. And it will make them better pianists all round. They will be all round better. They will listen better. They will be much better with their rhythm. They will potentially understand, if you go a little bit deeper, they will become better sight readers and understand a bit more about the harmony. And I think there are so many advantages to it. So I was super excited when you mentioned that you'd actually put this all together into a course. So why did you decide to do that? Because I know, by the way, how hard it is to make a course.
And I've wanted to make a digital course for a long time, actually. And I've kind of dabbled in it, tried a couple different topics that didn't really stick or land, I guess. And I had always kind of resisted doing accompanying as a digital course. I think because over the past few years, I'd gotten out of it as a full-time job and gotten more into the teaching side of things. So I thought I was going to do a different topic. And then I finally realized that the time was right and that this was the topic I needed to do. This is the topic that, it's my expertise. It's what I know. And I think there's an audience for it. I think that there's other pianists and other teachers who want to learn it. And so I finally just decided to do it.
Well, I want to come back to how you actually did it and some of the things you learned, because I know there are many teachers out there listening who are kind of entrepreneurial, have tried launching courses, or have a course in their head that they've always wanted to create, and you've just done it. How did the course launch go? Because I think you launched it last year. Is that right? 2023?
Earlier this year. So I think I launched, I don't even remember, February, I guess it was.
And you took a group through it, I think.
Yes, I did. So it went well. For my first launch, I didn't know what to expect. I was so scared that nobody was going to buy it, or one person was going to buy it, and then I was going to have to tell them that they were the only one. But thankfully, it went well. I had a good group. It was a small group, but it was a really good group of pianists who went through the course together. And so I dropped one module each week for 5 weeks. And on Fridays of each week, we would meet on Zoom as a cohort, and I would answer questions and do kind of a group coaching type session together.
Fantastic. That's great. So who would you say the course is for?
Well, you need to have some level of piano skills, obviously. I think I'm sort of still trying to figure out who it's for, because in the first launch, I had a teenage girl. She was, I think, 17, who has taken lessons for a long time and is just starting to get her feet wet with teaching and accompanying. And she wanted to learn, a lot more about it. I had a software engineer who has a full-time day job, but she does accompanying on the side. And she was kind of looking for a community where she could ask questions and get feedback and things like that. And then I had a number of piano teachers who either they've done some accompanying, but they had questions and weren't very confident in their abilities, or a couple of them had actually done quite a bit of accompanying, but they hadn't had any kind of formal training. So they wanted to, kind of see what the actual, I guess, research was, or get the more formal training in it.
That makes a lot of sense. So to give us an idea of how it works, well, firstly, are you kind of at the piano in some of these modules and sort of demonstrating how it works?
Yeah. So most of the lessons are slides and I'm just a little talking head in the corner. But there are some where I was like, I've got to be at the piano for this. So for instance, I did one on hymn playing where I wanted to demonstrate different hymn styles and how you could kind of expand your hymn playing. And so, yeah, I sat at the piano and demonstrated that. There's another one where I talk about choral accompanying and how to follow a conductor. And so I got on camera and showed the actual conducting patterns so people would know what they were looking for. So there are some where I'm at the piano or on camera.
I think that's great. Well, talk us through what are the main modules and the kind of learning stages?
So the first module is just an intro to accompanying. So we get really practical and talk about things like, where is the instrumentalist going to sit or stand? How do you give a tuning note? Things like that people maybe haven't thought about so much. And we also talk some about that sight reading. And each module has a practical skills section where you're practicing a certain technique. And so for module 1, it's sight reading. So I give some tips about how to practice sight reading, improve your sight reading. And then there's a PDF that you can go through and practice your sight reading using the tips that I gave. Then module 2 is vocal accompanying, and I included choral accompanying in that one. So we talk about accompanying solo singers as well as choirs, because I think a lot of pianists are asked to play for choirs. So I wanted to do that. And we also talk about reading open score, which is a whole beast of itself, where each choir part is written on a different staff and the tenor is written in treble clef up the octave. So it's like a whole,
that's nasty. Oh,
it's really nasty.
I don't think I've ever had to play from that. That's horrible.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's terrible. And then sometimes you have like double choir. So you have like 8 staffs.
Can't you just ask the conductor for the like easy score or reduced score?
Reduction?
Yeah.
A lot of times there isn't one. Sometimes there is.
Gosh.
But yeah.
There's a market for someone out there who can transcribe music.
No doubt.
Fix that problem for the accompanists of the world.
Totally. Yes. So I think everyone in my course knows that open score is my least favorite thing. But I do give them some ideas of how to make it a little easier. Module 3 is instrumental accompanying. So we talk about like how accompanying a violinist is different than accompanying a tuba player and things like that. And then we also get into some of the repertoire. Module 4 was one of my favorites, I think, to put together. And it's all about service playing. And so we talk about hymn playing. We talk about kind of the basics of reading chord charts. And then I also have lessons on playing for weddings and funerals, because I think those are also opportunities for income that a lot of pianists encounter. And so we talk about that. And then module 5 is the business of accompanying. So we cover how to find gigs, what to charge, contracts, and some of those details. And then I put in 2 little bonus lessons about accompanying musical theater, because as you know, that's like a whole nother thing.
Yeah, there's some fun scores in that as well. Those conductor scores where you have an entire orchestra in 2 hands. Oh my goodness.
I know. I didn't get too deep into it, but I wanted to give at least a little overview of musical theater. And then the last bonus lesson is some performance tips, because like I mentioned before, it's different when you're walking on stage with another performer, and some tips to help you in that situation, I guess.
I can't think of literally, I cannot think of anything else that you could possibly cover.
Oh, there's so much more I could have put
really?
in there.
That's why I don't have the DMA. That seems such a good coverage of most of the basics, though. I can't see anyone sort of instantly needing more than that. And you don't want to overwhelm everyone as well. I was just thinking too, you mentioned wedding pianist. I had Liz Craig, who was fantastic, on the podcast. I just looked it up, 166. I don't remember all my podcast episodes. But if anyone is interested, Liz talks about how that has become a significant part of her income, actually, playing for weddings. I think word of mouth in any of these roles, I remember when I was accompanying school exams, I would get calls all the time from schools looking for examiner, can you come and do this and that? And there is income potential during the day for sure in lots of jurisdictions if you're interested in this. So let's just talk. Can I just talk about the course, the business side of the course as well? Because this is really interesting for me as well. And I remember, so the first course I created was Piano Flicks, teaching pop piano back in 2014. So can you tell us about the experience of creating your first course for those who might want to do this one day?
So it takes a long time. It's a lot of work. I started, I guess, around Christmas. I had a little bit of time over Christmas break. So I worked really hard for, I would say, about 2 months, recording all of the modules and creating PDFs and all of that. And because of my personality, I needed to get the whole course created before I started thinking about marketing and launching and all that. I know some people will, launch the course when they haven't even created it yet, but that wasn't my style. I have kind of a one-track mind. So I needed to get it all out and know it was finished before I started the launch and the marketing for it.
And did you structure, like write out here's module 1 and move post-it notes around and sort of...
Yeah,
what was your process? Because that's kind of how I tend to do it, like a big brain dump of everything I need to teach, formulate it into modules, and then try and order the modules.
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I think I did do post-it notes. And then once I had the post-it notes kind of figured out in the modules, then I went on, in Word and typed up an outline and tried to get as detailed as I could in that outline about what was going to be in each module and then each lesson and what PDFs I was going to include and all of that.
And what were some of the things you've learnt from the process?
So many things. I learned that there's no shame in telling people over and over that you've created something because, I don't know what the statistics are, but people have to hear something many times, especially in the noisy internet world that we live in and social media. It's okay to say it over and over. And I also learned that the more, I guess, personable you can be with your sales, the more effective it's going to be. So, I thought that I could just put up a little social media post for my free webinar and people were going to start signing up. But I learned quickly that wasn't how it was going to work. So I got in the DMs and started sending voice memos to people saying, hey, I want to invite you to this webinar. And I just got really personal with people who had expressed interest in, my content and things like that. And if they didn't know somebody, maybe they knew somebody who would be interested. So yeah, I did it kind of scrappy, I guess, because it's small. It's my first launch. So yeah, I learned so much else, but that's the thing that kind of comes to mind.
And I think this is critical. The marketing, it's all very well being able to create a course, but you need to be able to market it. And that is not something any of us are really taught. And so you do have to go and learn about it. So it sounds like you used your Instagram following. I'm assuming it was Instagram, and you DM'd. Your strategy was, I'm going to DM people, direct message, send them a message, and invite them personally to come to a free webinar. And on that free webinar is when you introduce the course. Is that right?
Yes. So I did a lot on Instagram, and then I also used my podcast, the Dynamic Piano Teaching podcast. I popped in there and did a few episodes about the course to let people know. And then I did a little bit of email marketing, but my email list is pretty small. So, but I did send a number of emails to my list as well. But yes, it was a free webinar that people would sign up for.
And how did you learn how to do that marketing or what to do?
Well, a few years ago, I took Amy Porterfield's Digital Course Academy back during COVID when I first started getting interested in creating a course. So I went back to that and followed a lot of her processes. All of that.
Amy's great. I've followed her since I started my whole business. She's one of my few podcasts that I still listen to from 10 years ago almost. She's great. If anyone listening is interested in online marketing, in fact, her podcast is the Online Marketing Podcast, I think.
Online Marketing Made Easy.
Made Easy, that's right.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, correct. So, now tech is something that gets people down as well, or worries them or stops them from starting. So tell me, did you have to stress about tech?
Well, I didn't stress too much. I think my motto was done is better than perfect. So
100%.
I used my podcast mic because I had it and I feel like the sound quality is good. But the way I recorded was I made Canva slides in Canva. I have the pro version. And then you can actually record yourself. You can put notes in there and you can record in Canva and then download it as, I guess it's MP4.
And I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it was pretty slick usually. Sometimes it would glitch and I'd have to re-record, but it worked pretty well. And then for the ones where I was at the piano, I just used a tripod, and I think I used my phone to video those. I'm not sure, phone or computer.
Yeah, I still use my phone for lots of video.
Yeah, so it was nothing fancy. And then I host my course on Podia because that's the one I chose a few years ago when I started. So I just stayed with it, and it works fine for hosting the course.
There's so many options these days.
Yeah, there are.
Teachable, Thinkific, Podia, School with a K, Circle, Kajabi. I mean,
Kajabi,
there's so many.
A lot of people are doing.
Yeah, Kajabi's expensive though. I know that.
It is. Yep.
I've heard good things about Podia, and I know someone else using it. So what advice perhaps would you give other teachers who might be considering launching or trying to create their own course?
Well, I'd say, first of all, give yourself plenty of time. It's not an overnight thing by any means, because first you have to create the whole thing and your PDFs and all of that. And that can be a learning process if you've never done any of that. And then you have to figure out how you're going to launch it and market it. And that's a whole process too. One of the things I would say that was so helpful is that my friend Amy Elmore was also creating and launching a course at the same time as me. She actually really is the one who kind of gave me the kick in the pants to do it. She kept bugging me, and finally I was like, okay, I think I have the time and bandwidth to do it now. So get yourself a friend. And I know if for top music members, they might find their friend in top music, or they can find accountability community in the membership to keep them accountable and keep them on track. So that really, really helped to have somebody. We would get on Voxer and almost every day and just give updates of how things were going, what we were struggling with, what was working, what wasn't working. And so that was probably the most helpful thing in getting it actually completed.
Yeah, that accountability partner, so valuable. I would say one of the best things we could offer inside our membership is the power hours, because every week we have 3 one-hour co-working sessions where you can meet with other members. And at the start of the session, you say, right, this is what I'm going to do. So I'm going to have the modules outlined by the end of this hour. And everyone there is your accountability partner. They are just so good. And I just recommend anyone, if you're not already using them and you're a Top Music Pro member, try and get to them. We do 3 each week in different time zones. So there should always hopefully be one that suits you. And I would also say too, my course, Music Teacher Startup, was all about helping music teachers like you, Rachel, create their course and market and launch it. And that is available at musicteacherstartup.com. So go check that out if this process sounds interesting to you. So anything else to share before we tell people where to find out more about your next cohort launching?
No, I just want to, share about the next launch. So I'm going to be starting another cohort on July 8th, I'm pretty sure is when it starts, right after 4th of July here in the States. So I'm going to be doing a free webinar again on June 24th. So I would love for people to sign up for that. It's called How to Earn Extra Income by Playing the Piano. And it's some of my best tips for learning how to be a good accompanist. I think, I didn't mention this earlier, but I think one of the biggest outcomes for my students is that they gained confidence in sometimes what they already knew, or maybe what they didn't know. I don't know. But just some of them had done a lot of accompanying, but they're like, I don't know if I'm doing this right. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. I don't know if there's a better way. And so by the end, they were like, okay, my intuition was right. I was doing the right thing, So I think it's just a really good opportunity, especially now because I'm taking the cohorts through. It's a great place for community to ask questions, to
validation, perhaps.
Validation. That's a great word. Yeah.
Yeah. That's great. Where do they go? You better give us a link.
Yes. So actually, if you just go to my website, rachelehring.com, there'll be a pop-up and you can sign up right on that little pop-up. That's probably the easiest way to get to it. And we'll put a link in the show notes as well.
And do you just want to spell that website?
Yes. So my name is RachelEhring.com.
Fantastic. Rachel, thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about this. I think it's not something I've never created courses on this. I've not really talked much about it. And I think part of it is because I've done so much accompanying in my career that I probably overdid it. And part of my roles in schools was a lot of accompanying and probably too much in the end. So I haven't really talked much about it, but I'm ready to spread the word more because I do think it is a legitimate stream of income for piano teachers who might be looking for more work, particularly during those daytime hours. So thank you for creating the course for us. And I encourage everyone to go and check out the free webinar. Why not?
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tim, for giving me this opportunity. It's been great chatting with you. And I would love to have all the listeners join me in the webinar.
Great. And also go and check out Rachel's show, Top Music Piano Podcast. Search for it wherever you're listening to this show. Thanks, Rachel. We'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Tim.
If this sounds like something that could help you out during those daytime hours, then make sure you head to our show notes page for the link to Rachel's free webinar or connect with Rachel inside Top Music Pro. Because I know a lot of teachers have wanted to fill that daytime with income generating possibilities. And a lot of teachers I see in Facebook groups talk about homeschool students, for example. And that's a great market, but often takes a while to tap into. And I think this idea of accompanying and collaborative piano can really get you work. I mean, I've made some significant income from accompanying work, either on musicals or accompanying auditions for singers who are going for musicals, for example. And certainly over here in Australia, and the same would be the case in Canada and the UK, for accompanying students on instruments and voice who are going for exams. So I hope you'll look into it. Make sure you check it out. And I did find this about the course that she's created that we talked about today. She says, dynamic accompanying is the only course of its kind that will take you from feeling overwhelmed by accompanying to having the skills needed to confidently collaborate with other musicians. Whether you want to earn extra income by playing gigs or teach your students to perform with one another, come to the right place. So I hope you'll go and check out Rachel Ehring's amazing course. Speaking of Rachel, the Top Music Piano Podcast latest episode number 21, is titled The Intersection of Piano and Yoga with Tiffany Pinhorn-Smith. Make sure you go and check that out. You can just search for the Top Music Piano Podcast wherever you're listening to this show. Hope you'll enjoy that, and I will look forward to speaking to you again next time. How do you keep up to date with all the latest trends and research into music education? How do you connect with other teachers around the world and make sure your teaching stays fresh and relevant for students of all ages and stages, both now and into the future? I created our Top Music Pro membership to be the one-stop shop for music teaching resources, training, support and community, and I'd love for you to come and join us inside. With over 40 comprehensive training courses, hundreds of teaching demonstrations and lesson plans, free monthly sheet music, discounts, and all the business and pedagogy support you could ever need, Top Music Pro is the community you've been looking for. If you're ready to level up your learning from the podcast and join thousands of other teachers in our global network, head over to topmusicpro.com today. If you enjoy this show and want to hear more of our work, be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening today. For links and resources mentioned in this episode, visit us at topmusic.co/podcast or check out the show notes. I'm Tim Topham. Thank you so much for listening. Enjoy your week ahead, and I'll catch you next time.